What I'm going to talk about is the legal process, how the DOE goes about the changes in school utilization. And these come from Chancellor's Regulation A190, which recently was modified after a lawsuit. The first thing that happens if the school is going to be closed or have a co-location or moved or phased out, the first thing that happens is there's an educational impact statement, which is posted on the website. It's posted on the DOE website. It's supposed to be given to the school, the SLT, the CEC of that district. It's also supposed to be given to the citywide councils of English language learners and special education, and if applicable, citywide council of high schools. But before that happens, what you may not know is that officials have visited the school, have taken a survey, assessed their version of utilization, and they've come up with a formula to determine that the school is underutilized. And sometimes before, when that happened, people didn't really know what was going on, and I think now people are more aware. When it happened in my school, we knew we were having visitors, but we didn't really understand what was going on until after. Okay, so everyone gets the EIS, the Educational Impact Statement, and it's supposed to say, it states the school's underutilized, and it's supposed to say what they're going to do with your school. For instance, you're going to have a co-location. And they list or describe the impact, but they really don't, because they all pretty much say that there's no impact. So you have to read them very carefully for that. And now, after the changes in the A190, the EIS, every time I say that, that's the Educational Impact Statement, it has to include a building utilization plan. And they use the instructional footprint, and they describe how the building will now be used once your co-location happens. Which, if you're thinking what I'm thinking, that's a lot of work for something that hasn't been approved yet. But that's how it's done. The second thing that happens is there's a joint public hearing, no later than 45 days after the EIS is released. When the EIS is released, I'm sorry, one thing I didn't mention was there's an email, a snail mail address, and a phone number to receive public comments. So while that's happening, up into the joint public hearing where in-person people are leaving public comments, that process is going on. One of the important things about this public hearing is that it's not only to be run by the DOE, it is supposed to be a collaboration between the schools, the school leadership team, the affected school leadership team, and the CEC. And evidently that's not happening around the city. People aren't speaking up, and it just looks like the DOE is running the show. But there should be a table in front with your SLT members, CEC members, and the DOE people together. So it appears to be joint. Also, the DOE sets the agenda. They submit it to the CEC and the SLT members, but they don't tell the members that they are allowed to request time to give a presentation. And the school leadership team is allowed to time on the agenda, but they have to ask for it. So if they're not asking for it, they're not going to be given that time to give their presentation. And I know at my school, the PTA, which is president, which was on the SLT, she and another PTA member gave a presentation, which was pretty awesome. So that's important that you have to request it, because they're not going to tell you. And all the public comments are recorded at this time. And sometimes, with those public comments and all the others submitted, the Department of Education will decide that they're significant enough that they have to revise the impact statement. And then, if it's revised significantly enough, you get another public hearing and another 15 days of comments. And finally, all of this culminates in the PEP vote. Your comments are supposed to be assessed, summarized, and presented to the PEP members and posted online within 24 hours of the vote. And there are times where this does not happen, and they still vote on it. The reason why I'm pointing out what they're not doing is because if you're going to fight legally or otherwise, you can point out the ways that they weren't following. The DOE didn't follow their own regulations. Although, my school did that, and where did it guess? Okay. Now, it's important when you're reading your school's EIS that you document all the inaccuracies you draft a response, and you also, if you can share that with local elected officials and policymakers, it's helpful too. That's me and my presentation. If anyone has any questions, comments.
Useless for most people, right, to go through the process. Or this process that you're laying out. But there seems to be a reason to do it. I think that people do feel it's worth
Except for
doing.
what, PS 32? I mean, my school, we did everything we could to point out what was going wrong, and they didn't follow their process. And both schools who got their co-locations overturned, our school was mentioned in their article. Like, oh, look what happened to PS15. That's not going to happen to us. You're welcome. And, well, so in the toolkit right here, there's a list of many things that you can do as a school to fight against your co-location.
Okay.
The steps are in here.
But
Can I make a quick comment? So when you first started fighting, though, you knew nothing.
This wasn't in place.
Right.
And
So
whatever
now-
was in place, they did not follow it. And so as
Right.
we learned it and held them to
That's
the
right,
fire,
Right.
oh, okay, we'll give you your public hearing. And then we were like, wait a minute, our SLT, oh, okay, your SLT can be on the
Right.
thing.
I mean, my only point is that when you when you started, you didn't know anything. So now
Absolutely
there's a lot
not.
more known. So I think we need to try and use it all, and maybe there'll be more successes. I'm being optimistic.
Right, to flood their numbers, flood their emails with the comments. I would say even though it feels awful when you're at the PEP meeting and you watch how they vote, I still feel it's important to use the polls they give us, use the numbers, make the comments, make a fuss, point out all the wrong things that they're doing, so that hopefully it's going to get the attention of someone that can change this.
it's repeating, and it's like you think you're at the same one each time, but it's just a different one. They all say the same exact things every charter school. I was there one last Monday. And we're only here temporarily. It's only for 2 years. We have our own building, And then you start. And I went up with a camera to the city councilman. I pointed it in his face. I said, "Can you tell me where the building is?" He says, "I just forget the address, but there is a building." I said, "Can I come and see paperwork?" He says, "Do a FOIL, Freedom of Information." So here's the guy who's promoting the bill. I have it all on camera. Dominic Reckier is the city councilman. So the point is that it's the same, and they all get up and they say, "Oh, you're wonderful schools. But don't you believe in sharing?" Of course, they keep glomming onto your space. And you all talk about sharing, and then they're allowed to grow upwards, K to 12, upwards and downwards if they want, and every request your school makes is returned down. It's important. But the fact is that we've seen a change in the dialogue over the last year and a half. Just look at today's New York Times, major article by Michael Weinrib on PS9. That really lays, I think, a lot of that stuff out. And so we've got increasingly, and so to back up 11 is, so yes, we go to the PEPs, we do our little thing, we get up, we speak, they don't listen, but we point out that they don't listen. We tape that they don't listen, we put it up on YouTube, we write about it, we get the message out there, and I think we're beginning to get the message out. But you've got to go through all this crap to do it.
Up at Brandeis, they're filing a lawsuit against Eva coming in there.
That's right. And, and let me just say that in District 14, CEC 14, this Thursday night, Eva's coming to the CEC meeting, and behind the scenes, principals are organizing to have let's say, give her a reception.
That's
Eva Moskowitz from the Harlem Success.
Harlem Success Academy.
Yes,
Which is a
they
major,
put these on every single. They've inundated Greenpoint and Williamsburg and Bushwick and parts of
Parts of District 13, Fort Greene too.
Fort Greene, all over for one school. One school, and all the principals are looking and saying, "I don't have." They even asked the people, Kathy Black, at the meeting last month, "Where's our budget? Where's our budget for this?" They spend millions of dollars to advertise. Go look at the subway stop in Greenpoint.
They also give out bags to all the recruiters. I don't have mine because mine's in the garbage can on West 125th Street.
Yeah.
But they give out bags to everyone, little papers and markers in there as little souvenir items to like woo you over.
How do we break the myth that these things are public? Because if you do lawsuits, a lot of times, like I know around the underpaid laborers, that there was a lawsuit about 2 years ago, and they didn't have to pay those workers the state dormitory authority construction rates because they're private. And when it goes up to legal action, they're considered private, so they don't have to follow public regulations. And I was thinking also, how do you, you know, it's really sad when you see your community is split. You know, but there are parents, there are working class parents, there are working class staff, there's teachers, they're young. Whoever thinks about being compensated properly when you start off at 21 years old, 22 as a teacher, whatever, you know, for the most part, that's what they are. They put in the charter schools, the young people. Who thinks about all these other compensations like sick days, health benefits, pensions, and all the pensions, you know, so it's important, I think, to show how those things are taken away from those workers, because eventually they're going to be on our side, but it's going to be, unfortunately, a little too late. And we were already getting stories, and I think we got to continue getting those stories of those ex-charter people who have been disenfranchised, and the parents.
Well, I just wanted to quickly say, one of the things almost all the charter schools are doing, at least on the elementary level, they're getting hold to lists of children's names and addresses. And there's through a company called Vanguard, which the DOE has to have given them the names. They had to sell to them. And they're sending them out in droves to all our moving up Ks and 1s. And the parents are like, oh, look at this, you know, this great flyer. But it's not just Eva School. All the charters are doing this. You know, and we can't get kids to come and sign up for our pre-Ks, but because we can't send out this kind of literature, but they're all sending it out. They all have the addresses of everybody. It goes directly to the child's home.
Are they sending to everybody or just targeted?
They're targeted for whatever grades they're going to be opening in that
But
school.
what about neighborhoods? They're sending them to the projects, you think?
It's going all over.
Recently, an article about Cashin's work in exposing how the money isn't going into the schools ultimately. So it might not be in the first year or the second year, but over the period of 5 years, there's a big siphoning of public funds to the private, and the charter private boards are not exposing where the money's going to. So this is like breaking down all over the country, in DC,
Ohio.
right. So that is major. Those numbers should be blown up. The names of those charters, their histories, how the people have asked, the people who sat on the board didn't know this was happening and then asked for, well, show me where is the money going. And it's not going to the services of kids, ultimately. So they can't sustain themselves. This is just a moment in time when it's like, get in fast, make as much money as you can, and get out.
The whole thing is, and this is what they argue in Puerto Rico, if it's not good for the staff, because a lot of times we want to say, oh, well, it's for the children, you know, always stress the children. But if teachers are not compensated properly and they're overworked, then they're going to leave, and that's what's happening. They leave after 1, 2, 3, 5 years because they want to set up home, they want to buy cars, they want to, get a better place, have children, whatever, so they have to leave. So it's a big turnover rate.
And the cost that is for the principals.
And the cost to the kids, yeah.
But to the school budgets, when you invest a lot in new teachers and they leave within 2 and 3 years.
That's right.
We have a bunch of these pamphlets, The Truth About Charter Schools, which I think we're encouraging people to take with them.
Yes, and we have lots more.
But
If you want, we can get them to
I think everyone in this room pretty much is on the same page, but I think one of the issues that we've come up against is just the fact that a lot of people don't understand what's really going on with these charter schools, and there's a lot of misconception about what they really are. And so I think that's a big part of us being successful, is helping people understand what these charter schools really are. And I think one of the keys for all of us is that they aren't public schools, and most of them say that they are. And I think that's it's a challenge to get people to understand that, but I think it's really important. That's sort of like the key argument against, at least in my opinion, against charter schools, is that they are not public. They are in fact privately run organizations, and according to state law, they're actually education corporations. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people don't understand that, and it's very important to help people see that. And in this pamphlet, we have just a bunch of other statistics and stats and things that can also help, kind of clarify some of the misunderstandings just about how charter schools don't serve the same students as our public schools, They significantly under-enroll children who receive free lunch. They under-enroll English language learners. They don't serve special education students the same way our public schools do. Specifically in the neighborhoods where those schools are, like in Harlem, in the South Bronx, and North Central Brooklyn, you see really dramatic differences between the charter school enrollment and the public school enrollment. And then they also, not that we believe we should be measuring anything with test scores, but if you do look at the test scores, the charter schools actually aren't really producing better outcomes than our public schools. And what we tend to see actually is a lot of attrition in a lot of these charter schools. Kids leaving, kids being counseled out, kids being asked to leave if they can't perform. And that's, I think, something that a lot of parents don't understand too when they get these glossy things in the mail. They don't know that that could be the end result of, they're enrolling their child in that school. I don't necessarily think I need to go through everything in the pamphlet, but we definitely are encouraging people to take these with them, and distribute them in your schools and share them with parents too, and have the conversation with parents and stuff about this, especially parents who are receiving things in the mail like this. I know I've had a bunch of conversations with parents who've actually come up to me and said, am I supposed to sign up for this school? Or, what is this? Am I in? Do I have to go there now? So I think a big part of our work is just in having those one-on-one conversations with people to help them understand.